In this video, we will be looking at the November 2015 paper 1. It's a video I prepared for the grade 12s to help them with their final exam preparation. Right, before you watch this video, make sure you have the memo and the question paper at hand. Right, let's get down to the paper. Right, terminology. Give the correct biological term for each of the following descriptions. 121, the part of the brain that controls heart rate. We should already know that the part of the brain that controls heart rate is the medulla oblongata. 122, the maintenance of a constant internal environment in the body within certain limits, of course, homeostasis. 123, the plant growth hormone that promotes seed dormancy is obviously abscisic acid. 124, the collective names for the membranes that protect the brain. Membranes, they're asking, not bone, not fluid, so it's obviously the meninges. 125, a hormone that regulates the salt concentration in human blood. Obviously, aldosterone. 126 is in human impact, and if you don't mind grade 12s, I will ignore it as human impact is not in your syllabus anymore. 127, a hormone that stimulates the maturation of sperm, testosterone, or FSH or LH. Right. In 2015, human impact was still part of the syllabus, and now it's been removed now. Right, let's get down to question 1.3. Here, you make sure you write A only, B only, both A and B or none. 131. What requires the production of a large number of gametes to ensure survival of the species? Is it external or internal fertilization? Of course, it's both. Right, so it's both A and B, not just both A and B. 132. A type of development in birds where the young are incapable of moving and feeding themselves. Are incapable, so that obviously is nutritial, so your answer is B only. 133. A plant's defense mechanism against pathogens. Against pathogens, it will be obviously chemicals, so A only. 134. A gland which produces substances that are transported to target organs by ducts. So anything that has a duct, that will obviously be exocrine, so B only. And then 135. It's used by plants to reduce the chances of being fed upon by herbivores. So to prevent the chances of being fed upon by herbivores, it'll be chemicals and thorns, so it's both A and B. Right. 1.4. Each diagram below represents parts of the human eye. 141. Give the letter and the name of the part that contracts to change the shape of the lens. Now remember, anything that contracts and relaxes is a muscle. And so, of course, we have to look for the ciliary muscle, and that is obviously a ciliary muscle. Letter and name of the part that controls the amount of light that enters the eye. Amount of light that enters the eye. If you're looking, you can looking probably for the pupil, but the pupil's not labeled here. So, what controls the pupil? The iris, and then you can see that is C, iris. Letter and name of the part that is protected by the conjunctiva. Now we know the conjunctiva is the outer layer. What does it protect? Of course, it protects the cornea. 142. Study diagram 1 and diagram 2. What process is responsible for the change in the shape of the part E? Part E, can you see, is the lens. What makes the lens change shape? What process? Accommodation. 143. Which diagram 1 or 2 represents the state of an eye when a person is reading a book? When you're reading a book, of course, the lens is more convex, so diagram 2. Right. Question 1.5. The diagram below shows the growth movement of a part of a plant towards a stimulus. I have removed 1.5 and 1.52, 151 and 152 because these two questions were not accurate in those days. So I removed it. I did not want to go over something that was not very accurate with you. 153. Name the growth hormone that is responsible for the growth movement named in 152. So What hormone is responsible for any tropism? It will obviously be auxin. Will a high concentration of the growth hormone auxin, mentioned in 153, stimulate or inhibit the growth in roots? That's quite easy. Inhibit. And 155, name the phenomenon where the buds at the tip of the plant regulate growth of the lateral branches. Very important, apical dominance. Right, let's get down to question 2. The diagram below represents a part of the human ear. 211. Identify part A. That's the long tube that can only be here, the eustachian tube. Identify part B. If you look at it, it's actually round, so you know it's the round window. And E, can you see it looks spiral, so that's the cochlea. 212. Explain the result of part A is blocked. So if the eustachian tube is blocked, remember, you have to tell me what's the function of the eustachian tube. So A will not be taken in, will not be able to equalize pressure on either side of the tympanum. The ossicles will not freely vibrate. The tympanic membrane can burst. And what's the result? It's obviously pain, deafness, hearing loss. Nice question. 213. Describe how part D, which is the semicircular canals, plays a role in maintaining balance when the body changes speed and direction. So, what do we say? When there's a changing speed and direction, the endolimbs moves. The cristae, which is found in the ampulla, are stimulated and converts the stimulus into an impulse, which is transmitted by the auditory nerve to the cerebellum. And then the impulse are transmitted via motor neurons to the skeletal muscles to restore balance. These 2 questions, grade 12, so write them down in a book and make sure you always have an idea of that answer in your head, because these questions get asked over and over again. Question 2.2. The diagram below illustrates a phase in meiosis. 221. Identify part A. Part A, can you see? It's pointing to the whole chromosome. So you can see it's even enclosed by a whole bracket or a whole block. So it's a chromosome. Part B, we should know, spindle fiber. And C, can you see it's in the center? Centromere. 222. Identify the phase illustrated above. Can you see there are 2 single chromosomes at the equator? So of course, that's in the equator, in the middle, so it's metaphase, and there's single chromosomes, metaphase 2. Give a reason for your answer. We said chromosomes lie singly at the equator. 224. Draw a diagram of the cell above as to appear in anaphase 1. Read the question carefully. It's often bolded for you. Anaphase 1. Anaphase 1, ana means apart. So you draw the chromosomes apart. Anaphase 1, a whole chromosome is moving apart from each other. So this is what you draw. And you make sure that there's no spindle fibers in here in the center. Right? And whole chromosomes, and you make sure the shading is correct as well. So what they're looking for, C shows 4 chromosomes, shows the separation, and then you must show the variation in the chromosomes to show crossing over. Very nice question. Okay, and this is all they asked for. They didn't ask for labels. So you must read the question carefully. Right, 2.3. An investigation was conducted to determine the diameter of a healthy follicle in a human ovary during the menstrual cycle. A sample consisting of 50 women aged between 20 and 25 with regular menstrual cycles was used for this investigation. The average changes in the follicle diameters of all 50 women during their menstrual cycles were measured and recorded. 231. Name 2 steps that were considered during the planning of this investigation. So what do they do? Of course, they asked for permission. They decided on the sample size. They decided on the equipment for measuring. Decided on the age group of the participants. Decided on using women with regular menstrual cycles. Decided on how to record results. Decided on the duration of the experiment, and they learned how to use the equipment. Any of those 2. 232. The following results were obtained from the investigation. So as you can see, the days when follicles were measured, these are different days, and the average follicle diameters of the 50 women in millimeters was measured. Use the results and explain the changes in the follicle diameter from day 14 to 25. So from day 14 to 25, what happened? Can you see the follicle size is decreasing? Obviously, you know what has taken place in day 14. Ovulation took place. So the Graafian follicle burst in what form? The corpus luteum. And it became smaller because fertilization did not take place. Nice question. How? The results would probably differ if all 50 women used contraceptive pills that contained a high level of progesterone. What will happen? Remember, high levels of progesterone, right, will inhibit the production of FSH. This will inhibit the growth of a follicle, and the follicle size will then remain the same. Okay, so very nice questions. 2.4. The diagram below represents the central nervous system in a human. 241. Identify part A. Part A, you know, is the medulla oblongata. Part C is the corpus callosum. And part D, you know, is the cerebellum. 242. State three functions of part B. Part B is the cerebrum, so we know controls all voluntary actions. Contains centers that receives and interprets all sensation. You can give an example. Is the seat of higher mental functions. You can give an example, such as reasoning, emotional behavior, memory, judgment. And then 2.5. Describe the structure and functioning of the autonomic nervous system. Now, with the autonomic nervous system, each organ and gland has two sets of nerves, and that's known as double innervation. Each nerve is antagonistic, right? And they control involuntary events. The sympathetic nerve, right, will stimulate a response, while parasympathetic generally inhibits a response. Make sure you write that down also. It's a nice question that from 2015 has been asked quite often. 3.1. Describe how the human body restores the carbon dioxide concentration in the blood when it rises above normal. 6 marks. So we know the receptor cells in the carotid artery will be stimulated with its high amounts of carbon dioxide. This will send impulses to the medulla oblongata, which will stimulate the heart to beat faster, and the breathing muscles will contract more actively, which will increase the rate and depth of breathing, so that more carbon dioxide is taken to and exhaled from the lungs, returning the CO2 levels back to normal. Nice question. Always comes out. All papers. Then, 3.2. An investigation was conducted to compare the glucose concentration in the blood of two people, Mo and Tabiso, before and after ingesting glucose. The following procedure was followed. The glucose concentration in their blood was measured at the start of the investigation and again 1 hour into the investigation. 1 hour into the investigation, each of them was given 50 milliliters glucose solution to drink. Then, for the next 4 hours after ingesting the glucose solution, the glucose concentration in the blood was measured every 30 minutes. Here's the results shown in the graph. The arrows indicate when they drank the glucose solution. Right, note. Normal glucose concentration in the blood is between 80 and 120 milligrams per 100 centimeters cubed. So there you have your blood glucose concentration and your time. Provide a suitable title for this graph. What are you doing? You are comparing the blood glucose levels of two people over 5 hours before and after ingesting glucose. Nice question. 3.2. By how much did Tabiso's blood glucose concentration level increase after drinking the glucose solution? Show all working. So it went from 145 about, right? So from 145 to 125, our answer would be by 20 milligrams. Don't forget the unit per 100 centimeters cubed. 3.3. How long did it take Mo's blood glucose concentration to return to its original level after ingesting the glucose concentration? So this is 3.3. So yeah. Right, if you look here, this is the time after his glucose level increased in 3 to this, and you minus it. The memo accepts anything from 1.7 to 1.9 hours. Of course, if you had the question paper, we could measure clearly, but of course, now we can't do it on the computer. Right. 3 to 4. Who? Tabiso or Mo has diabetes mellitus? Now, of course, It's Tabiso. Right, if you look. And they're going to ask you why. How do you know it's Tabiso? Because his glucose level is much higher if you look at in the graph than normal. It's much higher than normal. Okay. And it also takes longer for his glucose levels to come down to original level. As you can see, it takes much longer for it to come down. Right. Then 3 to 5. Explain the changes in Mo's glucose level during period X. Period X. They want you to explain the changes in his glucose level. So can you see his glucose level is decreasing? Now why? When his glucose level is high, then obviously insulin is secreted. This will convert the excess glucose into glycogen and stimulate the cells to absorb more glucose, and that's what brings about the decrease in the blood glucose level. And the last one, the essay, question 4. Explain the structural suitability of the sperm cell for its function and describe its involvement in the formation of a zygote and the development of the zygote until implantation. A very nice question. Why I'm still insisting on doing the essays is because each small part, these 3 parts, can be broken down and given to us as short questions. Right, so what's the structural suitability of the sperm for internal fertilization? The front of the head contains acrosomes, which carries enzymes to dissolve the part into the ovum. The nucleus of the sperm carries the genetic material of the male. The middle piece contains mitochondria, which releases energy. The presence of a long tail enables sperm cells to swim. The contents of the sperm cells, such as the cytoplasm, is reduced to make the sperm lighter for efficient movement. Right. Then they want us to describe the involvement of the formation of the zygote and development of the zygote until implantation. So fertilization in the fallopian tube, one sperm cell makes contact with the ovum's membrane. Then the nucleus of the sperm enters the ovum. The ovum membrane becomes impenetrable to other sperms. The nucleus of the sperm fuses with the nucleus of the ovum to form a diploid zygote. This is called fertilization. Then, the events after fertilization and implantation, the zygote divides by mitosis, many times to form an embryo. It first consists of a ball of cells called the morula, then divides into a hollow ball of cells called the blastocyst, and then this will embed in the endometrium lining using chorionic villi. Well, that was a good paper and I hope you learned a lot. Junior Takis, thank you for watching the video. Join me and watch all my other videos as well.